This is the Crowdcrux Crowdfunding Podcast with Sal Briggman, where we cover everything you need to know to launch a successful crowdfunding campaign. We speak with proven entrepreneurs who've raised money from the crowd and want to teach you how to do the same. Stay tuned because we're about to reveal how to launch your dream project. With your host, Sal Briggman.
Before we get started with this podcast episode, I want to take a second to introduce you to my friends at Fulfillrite. If you need help shipping out your Kickstarter or Indiegogo perks or rewards, Fulfillrite is the absolute best company for you. I've been working with them for a while and I can vouch for their services. They make it dead simple and take all of the headache out of shipping out all of those boxes, all of those orders to your backers and your customers. If you want to check them out, go to fulfillrite.com at FULFILLRITE.com. What's up, crowdfunders? Salvador Briggman here. Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. I hope you've been enjoying some of the other episodes I put out on this podcast, some of the other guests that I've had on, sharing from many different industries, many different categories, how they've successfully raised money on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. They go into how they got backers, traffic, eyeballs, like all of that kind of stuff. And really, this is for you. This is to educate you as you're preparing for your first campaign, your second campaign, or maybe you're in the middle of a crowdfunding campaign and you're kind of wondering like, okay, what do I do now to get more and more backers? So this is the reason that I created this podcast. There's only so much that I can share myself on my blog, YouTube channel, etc., my online courses and books. The goal here is to sort of allow you to hear from people who right now, at this very moment in time, are successfully raising money with crowdfunding. And my goal is to also show you that anyone can do this. Anyone out there can do this, no matter where you are in the world, no matter your background, no matter what language you speak, no matter how old you are. There is a case study, if you will, of everyone that I've had on this show who have successfully gone through a crowdfunding campaign, raised money, and now they have either an online business or a bunch of customers that have experienced their product. So I think it's really cool in that way. It's kind of like collecting crowdfunding case studies. Today's episode, I brought on an individual who has raised $4.3 million with his Kickstarter campaign that, at the time I'm recording this, it's currently ongoing. And his first campaign raised over €1 million. So the focus of this episode, as you know, I talk a lot about marketing and getting backers and stuff. The focus of this episode more so is on the subject of fulfillment. So once you have thousands of backers, 12,000 customers, how do you ship out your rewards to all of these people? Particularly in terms of coordinating all of that, getting rates, figuring out the different pieces of the puzzle. How do you do customer support? Like all this kind of stuff that is very rarely talked about, kind of goes behind the scenes of Kickstarter. We discuss on today's episode. So I think it's gonna be really valuable for you, particularly if you realize that Kickstarter is not just raising money. Like, it's great to raise money. We all want to raise money. But at the end of the day, it's a way for you to establish a relationship with potential customers. And if this relationship, if you don't send out the product, if it's a crappy product, or if shipping is all messed up, it hurts the relationship. So maybe you have a bunch of people who backed you, but it doesn't mean they're going to buy something else from you. So today's episode is all focused on fulfillment, and we also get into, why it is that this individual is able to raise so much money on Kickstarter. If you haven't already and you want to gain access to updates weekly on the new content that I have coming out, whether it's my podcast, blog articles, YouTube, sometimes I'll do webinars. If you want to be the first to be notified when I put out new stuff, you can go to this link and subscribe, and I'll be sending out weekly emails to sort of update you on these various things. So this is crowdcrux.com/subscribe. That is crowdcrux.com/subscribe. That's the best place you can go for like the latest and greatest content. that I'm putting out and the latest kind of stuff that I'm doing. If you're looking for more of a step-by-step tutorial, you're looking to be led along with free videos in terms of how to actually raise money on Kickstarter, how to get into the media, how to really supercharge your campaign, all the different things I've been learning over the last several years, you can go to crowdcrux.com/crowdfunding. That is crowdcrux.com/crowdfunding. And I'll begin to share these videos and lessons with you. And you can learn what many other projects have done to actually get backers, to get eyeballs, and to get even more traffic to their campaign than they currently have. So some of the techniques and strategies that you can use to boost your campaign and the funding meter. So I hope you enjoy those two links. Always feel free to reply to my emails. I can't get to all of them, but I do try and read every email or every reply that people send me. I really appreciate that. It's kind of cool to see the community and the various questions you guys have, so I can have even more tailored guests on this show. But without further ado, let's get into today's it's always hard to say that. Get into today's podcast episode. Bruno, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm excited to talk about your Kickstarter project. You've already raised $4.3 million with your project off of a $40,000 goal. A ton of success, man. 6 days to go. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having us with you today. It's
totally.
a pleasure.
Where in the world are you talking from, or where are you located?
We are in Paris, France.
Nice.
And we are French.
Very cool. I want to get into also a little bit in terms of the difference between running a campaign from the United States versus France or Paris or other non-English speaking countries. But the first thing I want to do to sort of jump off this interview was, so you've launched another campaign on Kickstarter. Is that right?
Yes, actually this is our second campaign, and it's the first campaign was for the same game. I mean the same base game at least. It was 2 years ago on Kickstarter as well, and thanks to the help of 12,000 backers, we reached our goal. And the game, the Seventh Continent that we are talking about, has been released and sent to our backers this summer. And we've decided, because we had new ideas that we wanted to bring to life, so we've decided to run a new Kickstarter for a new big expansion to the original game. So the base game is still available along with optional buys from the previous campaign, and we have new content as well on Kickstarter.
And how much did this first campaign raise when you launched it on Kickstarter?
The first one was in euros, so it's difficult to compare because of the currency issues, but basically it was 1,200,000 euros, more or less.
And 12,000 backers, wow.
Yes, 12,000 backers. So it was already pretty successful, and we were very happy, and now we are just going from happy to blown away with the success of the new Kickstarter. But hopefully we've learned a lot from the first experience. And we've been working on this project for more than 4 years now. Because before the first Kickstarter, we already spent 2 years designing this mechanism, which is basically some kind of choose your own path board game. So a board game which is between the board game and the choose your own adventure game books. And also with lots of stuff coming from video game and role-playing game that we've put into it. So it's been 4 years now, and the 2 last years we've been working on crafting this board game for our first backers, and we've learned a lot from both the publishing aspect and from the Kickstarter aspect as well.
Yeah.
So hopefully things will go even smoother this time. But the first campaign and the first production went pretty well. We were late, but people were aware of that, and we kept them in the loop all the time. We were doing about 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks there was a new update with new stuff for bakers to learn about. So basically it was a bit like what's going behind the curtain,
Yeah. And you attracted 12,000 backers. You had like 12,000 comments on the campaign. That to me is just a really large project to manage so many customers and to send out this game to so many different people. I imagine different countries or locations, etc. What was that like? Did you learn anything on the fulfillment front?
Yeah, of course. Fulfillment was a key aspect of the project for two reasons. The first one is because it's, and this is something that Jamie Stegmaier pointed out, to us is really kind of the expert of the question. And he has been talking about this on his blog. And it's been, before we started our own Kickstarter, we read a lot of stuffs on his blog, and we chose not to follow everything because I think it's pretty, his advice works very well for his Kickstarters. And we had another strategy, if I can say. But nevertheless, we were, this was something he raised very early, which is if you do not calculate properly your shipping costs, you might end up with losing a lot of money. Meaning you might do a very good amount of turnover on Kickstarter, but nevertheless end up losing money in the end. And it has happened to several project creators in the past. Because for obviously most destinations, you will be very confident that the price you got from the fulfillment guy is the correct one. But you cannot go necessarily because it takes a lot of time to go into every specific location. So for instance, if I need to ship a game to, let's say, Alaska or to say to Singapore or whatever, I might do it on estimate basis. And if you fail to have the correct estimate, you can end up having, let's say, 200 bakers, and each one is going to cost you $50 in shipping that you didn't ask them to pay for. So you are going to lose $2,000 in this one, and that's for a single location. So multiply this by 30 locations and dozens or hundreds of bakers. Obviously, the more successful you are, the more bakers you will have, and the more money it can cost you. So this is something you have to bear in mind. Is it's very important to know exactly how much your content is going to cost you. And this is especially difficult because when you launch your project, you don't have the final product. So you don't know exactly how much is going to weight, and you don't know exactly the final size of each component, and you don't know how many bakers will come from how many different countries. So it's pretty difficult.
Well, one thing I want to ask you here was, so when you are doing that, you're nailing down the actual shipping and you're trying to figure out those costs. How do you do that? Is there anything you learned in ways of people can do that themselves, or is it literally just breaking out the spreadsheet and like figuring that out?
Well, just so you know, we are two guys. So Ludovic, my associate, who does he works with me on the mechanism of the game. So we are both game designers. He's more about the core mechanics and I'm more about level design. And also he does all the artwork, all the graphical aspects, videos, 3D, etc. And I mostly work on production matters, writing texts, writing the rule book, doing the updates and stuff like that. And we work very well as a team because we are complementary. We work together just fine, and we've been doing this for years now. So we are just two guys. We don't have a guy who is a specialist of fulfillment and a guy who is specialist of marketing, or a guy is. So we basically have to learn new stuff as they come. And fulfillment was one of them. So we learn from others' experience, and in the end, the way it worked is the following one: we have made the games in China, in Shenzhen. And then we shipped the game by boat to Australia, to Europe, to Canada, to USA, and we had also containers in China mainland for all the Asian countries. This is to avoid that our bakers have to pay custom taxes when the game arrives to their house. Because if we import the game directly to the United States, for instance, we pay the tax when the games arrive. And then the games will ship from USA to USA, and therefore bakers won't have to pay any tax. That's what people call shipping friendly on Kickstarter. Once you have imported the games will go to a fulfillment center, a logistical partner, a warehouse basically, where a company, for instance, in Europe we use a company called Meeple Logistics, is going to send all the games, all the rewards, through all the European countries. So that's France, Belgium, England, Germany, you name it. We've had games all over the planet. And after that, you have to deal with the most complicated part maybe of fulfillment, which is after-sale service, especially on a game of the scale of ours, because you necessarily will have people, I guess it's usually about 1% of them, who have facing issues with their box. And in normal retail, this would be the distributor who takes care of this because he is used to it. But on Kickstarter, it's the project creator who is going to take care of all these after-sale services. And it can go up to, my daughter accidentally burned the rulebook, can you replace it? To I didn't receive my copy, or it is old by the custom clearance, or whatever. And you have thousands of specific cases that you have to deal with, and it's really, really time consuming. So
did you just do that all via the comments section on Kickstarter, or was this via emails? How did you manage that workflow?
Both, actually. It's most of the time it's emails, but we are talking about 200, 250 emails per day during the time you send the games. And at the same time, you have to take care of how people are responding to the game. Hopefully, in our case, the feedback was pretty good, and we've got good rankings on BoardGameGeek and other websites, and good review from reviewers such as Tom Vazel or Rado or whoever, other reviewers. So this helped a lot. But I've discussed this with the Gloomhaven project creator, who was very successful as well. And he expressed the same thing I felt this summer, which is you have the emotional lift, So you go from, my game is very successful to, oh my God, I have 100 people asking me for replacement stuff and having issues with their copy of the game, which on a 12,000 figure of bakers is not much. But when you have to deal with all those cases, it can be pretty frightening.
Exactly. I mean, even if 1% of that number has issues and problems, it's still a lot of people.
Yeah, I think I answered 3,500 emails in August alone.
Wow, wow.
Yes.
Did you use any kind of tools to help with managing that process, or is it just pretty much you in the inbox replying to everyone?
Well, you have tools, especially there are softwares called Helpdesk who help you have some generical message that you can adjust to gain some time. That being said, for this one, we were a bit not prepared enough, so I did it mostly on a day-to-day basis. But for the upcoming after-sale service, since now we have more than 30,000 bakers, we definitely have to get more professional about this aspect of the campaign.
One of the things you also talked about and touched on earlier was the fact about communication. And when you're going through this entire shipping out period, really working hard to make sure that your backers understand the trials and the complex nature of Kickstarter and fulfillment. How did you actually keep your backers up to date or not angry about you delaying the shipping date and that kind of stuff? Were you updating them like monthly or weekly or even daily?
Yes. So most projects on Kickstarter are late, and that's for a very simple reason. It's when the project launches, there are many aspects of it that are not yet finalized, because this is the whole purpose of Kickstarter. It's not to bring a game that is completely finished to an audience, because that's, in our opinion, not the very purpose of the platform. It's more about you have an idea, you validate that it works. Now you are going to go into the specifics, and you need money because you've already spent 2 years on it, so you don't have any money anymore. So you need guys to pay for the 2 years of work you are going to have after that. So most projects are late. But in the end, it's the most important thing is not about being late or being on time. It's more about how you explain your bakers the difficulties you might face and the reasons why you are late. And when you just consider people, your bakers, as intelligent human beings, which they are, it's very easy because people understand, and when the reasons why you are late are credible and they are true, and you explain that it was either to improve something or because it was something that went wrong that you didn't plan, most of the time people are going to understand. And I think from our experience that what bakers don't like, it's not much delay, it's more being kept in the dark. So when project creators stop giving news or are getting silent or not answer or whatever.
I had to interrupt this podcast episode because I want to introduce you to my friends at the Gadget Flow. Their product discovery platform reaches 22 million people per month. They've helped more than 5,000 crowdfunding campaigns thus far, and they have a social media following of more than 700,000 followers. If you want to gain access to their marketplace and list your own product, you can go to thegadgetflow.com/submit and list your project today.
And because it's always about taking a risk. You don't know the project creator once the game is launched on Kickstarter. So you are trusting someone, and you hope that this trust will be used wisely, and you're not going to be abused by this person that you don't know. So it's very important to keep people in the loop. And we made, I think, at the very beginning after the Kickstarter, we made a new update every 2 weeks, telling people where we are, how much there's to do left, with a provisional schedule every time, etc. And then it went from 2 to 3 weeks, and 3 weeks to a month at the very end of the project, when things were not depending anymore on schedule, but on our manufacturer. But I guess we've published, I don't know, maybe more than 50 updates during the time of the production. We've to show bakers white samples of the game, to tell them how we dealt with plastic figures, or how to with artworks, or what was a change in the rules. We send them the alpha version of the rule book so they can have a look at it and give us some feedback, so we could take this into account. So we try to implicate them as much as possible, which is fair, by the way, because it's the whole point of going to Kickstarter is to share a project with your community and your bakers.
Very well said. The last question I have for you here on the fulfillment front is, did you use any other tools? Like, I know there are some tools like CrowdOx or BackerKit to sort of help with this fulfillment aspect, or the surveys and stuff. Did you use any tools, or do you plan to?
Yes, we had a pledge manager for the previous campaign, and we will have one for the current campaign as well. We used CrowdOx for the first one. I'm not going to go into specifics about what's different from one to the other, but basically they are tools that allow you to deal with your customers more easily than Kickstarter does. Especially when it comes to taking care of delivery address, updating your coordinates, etc. Because, for instance, on Kickstarter, when a baker changes his delivery address, you are notified, but you don't know who did it. And also, you cannot prevent him from changing it even once the rewards have shipped.
Yeah.
And at one time, with the pledge manager, you can say, okay, guys, now the games are shipping now to you, so we won't allow you to update your address anymore. Otherwise, you won't receive your reward. This is something you cannot do on Kickstarter. So
that software definitely helped. I sort of
it helped, yes.
I want to sort of move the conversation a bit to the marketing behind your project, because as you mentioned, you guys aren't necessarily like professional marketers. You're game creators and you love that aspect, but you had to learn marketing a little bit in order to have these campaigns be successfully funded. So how actually is it then that with your campaign, was this like all organic? Like you just launched this and people started to back it? Was there some kind of pre-launch involved before you announced it? How did you actually market these campaigns and get backers?
To be honest, my associate Ludovic and I, we used to work together in a digital communication agency that we created back in 2000. So we had a background of communication and digital communication especially, so it helped a lot. That being said, the marketing behind the project was mostly to be sure that people have heard about the game before the first campaign launched. So that was 2 years ago. So we spent months in France doing all the conventions, showing the game, sending prototypes to reviewers, doing articles on Board Game Geek, etc. So people would just learn about the game. And it worked, hopefully, because the game was something new. People felt it was something they already knew in a way because of the Choose Your Own Adventure game books of their childhood. So it appealed somehow to them. And the game was... it got some hyped back in the day, and when the campaign launched, the first one, we had already, I guess we financed the campaign in 2 minutes and a half, because there were already a lot of people waiting for for the Kickstarter campaign. For the new campaign, it's a bit different because it was more about how the game would be welcomed once it was released. And since we've had very good feedback from players, it helped generate
the buzz,
notoriety about yes. So I think the game was in the Board Game Geek hotness for the last 6 weeks, which is crazy in a way, because there are so many other cool games out there.
You have a cool game too.
Yeah, but we are not the only one, and sometimes it's a bit, even for us, frightening to just when there's so many people talking about you, because in a way it's you want to say okay, there are other games as well. Stop talking about us, but it's cool at the same time. So it helped a lot, definitely. And when we launched this Kickstarter, people I've heard of it, and also the game won't be available in retail later. So this is something also that we decided to do because the game is very expensive to manufacture, and we can't afford to have a retailer plus a distributor. Otherwise, either the game would be very expensive in a shop, in a classic retail shop, or we would earn almost nothing on it.
I mean, with this game, the newer launch too, you have 32,000 backers. I mean, that's double what you had with your first project. I think that's number one, a testament to the fact that people really love the game. You know, obviously people that bought the first version are going to be interested in the second, but you guys also, I think, just were probably more aware with the marketing, what goes into a Kickstarter campaign. Were you doing anything specific like advertisements or email list or social media? Were any of these things in your marketing strategy? I'm speaking to the crowdfunders in the audience who have already launched a Kickstarter campaign or have actually even successfully run a campaign. And the reason is, I think you will understand this pain point most. And that is, when you finally do raise money on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, the hardest part is not collecting the cash. The hardest part is shipping out all of those perks and rewards to your backers. It is a nightmare, my friends. It's a lot of spreadsheets, it's a lot of headache, and it's a lot of stress. That's why I recommend BackerKit. If you have not heard of BackerKit, they help you collect surveys, they help you collect data, and the entire fulfillment process is just so much easier and so many less spreadsheets when you use their software. You can check them out at backerkit.com and use CrowdCrux for a special discount.
Yes, we did all that. We've had banners on several websites such as Dice Tower, Board Game Geek, Trick Track in France, which is the biggest French website, biggest French community, tricktrack.net. So we purchase banners. It's also a way to thank those websites for the work they do. Apart from just, but they are big communities, big forums on which we've spent hours talking with people, etc. So it's in a way it's a way to thank those platforms as well. Also, we've made some social media, not that much because this is not something we are very good at. But we've made also emails to, of course, all the previous backers just to tell them that the game was back on Kickstarter and with a new expansion if they wish to jump in the adventure once again, and also since there are lots of people who were aware of the game but couldn't purchase it during the last 2 years, and when the game was released and it had this good feedback, people were like, when can I have it? And I was like, we were like, no, sorry, the game's not available anymore, but you can give us your email address, and once the new Kickstarter starts, we'll send you an email. So we collected a lot of emails from those people. So once again, when the game was back to Kickstarter, we just sent them an email. So it was not aggressive marketing. Like we are not going to spend one email a day just to have them go to the Kickstarter. Yeah. We just told people basically who are interested in the game, okay, it's now. If you want to go to the Kickstarter campaign, here is the link, and feel free to back it if you like. What we do.
What do you believe for this project was the value of the media? You know, did you see, for example, media publications picking up the second campaign, and were people backing as a result of reading those articles? Was that a part of the strategy, or that wasn't part of one for the second one?
it's very difficult to know what brings someone to the campaign. Is it because he saw a banner or because he heard of the game previously and the banner reminds him of the game? So I couldn't go into specifics with figures. I think from what I've seen on our analytics that websites such as Board Game Geeks definitely have an impact in terms of audience. But once again, it's difficult to say if the banner is only a reminder that helps cross the step between not being a backer and being a backer, or if this is something that really generates awareness more. I honestly cannot tell.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's more difficult to track, and obviously it's also more general awareness and warming people up to the concept. So it's kind of hard to figure that out. I did have one question here too. I think a lot of people struggle with the actual putting together perks and rewards for the campaign and really figuring out what to offer people, the right price, all of that kind of stuff. Did you learn anything in terms of offering compelling rewards to backers from your first project? Like maybe even making it simpler or simplified versus having lots of rewards? Did you learn anything about that component?
There's a company that I think a few years back did a real something really innovative and new, and it's called Google, and they chose to just simplify to simplify the way people access to their search engine. So I think simplicity is always better. So if we can limit the number of pledge that you have to, I would say 2, maybe 3, not more than 3. This is something that I would advise. Although, once again, the advice we give are work for some projects and won't work for others. So simplicity is always, and transparency are always better. That being said, the difficult aspect is to in a Kickstarter campaign is the overall rhythm of the campaign.
Yeah.
I mean, it's because if you, for instance, people, some bakers say, okay, you have lots of optional buys, and why don't you know them already? We all know that. So why don't you put them at the very beginning of the campaign so we don't have to every 2 days or 3 days add $10 to our pledge because we want this optional buy?
Yeah.
Well, we do this for a very simple reason, because if we do this, we are going to have a huge amount at the very beginning of the campaign, and then nothing is going to happen during the 3 weeks after. So we will unlock maybe 30 stretch goals in a row, and they will be dissolved because they are too much. And nothing will happen after, so people will get bored, which is not the purpose of the campaign, because we like to have something happening almost every day during the Kickstarter campaign that we run. So either a stretch goal that is unlocked, and I have to keep an eye on the project, because I guess the next one will be coming soon. Yeah. And I'm the one pushing the button, so I definitely need to check where we at. Okay, I have maybe half an hour left to push my button. Sorry?
Well, I'm not sure if you want to go into that. I also have one last question.
No, it's okay. Yeah, okay. It's just a matter of pushing the button. The update is already ready, so I did it before we start talking. So I just need to push the publish button, and then it will go live. So no problem. So what's your next question?
So Bruno, my last question for you here is in terms of where backers are coming from. So you've gotten a sizable number from the United States. You've also had a lot from France, Canada, Germany, UK. My very last question for you here is, were there any cultural differences that you noticed with this project? Either you as a creator, an entrepreneur, a board game creator in France, or the people that are playing this game. Did you notice any cultural differences that you think are worth mentioning?
Well, this is something we obviously didn't take into account enough during the first Kickstarter. For small details, but small details are might become big gates in the end when you don't take care of them. And because we are from France, there are some things that we have a different relationship to than other cultures. So it can be about symbols. So for instance, we had this icon. It was a black cat icon that we wanted to use to express bad luck. And when we displayed the card in one of our updates, people were like, okay, but why don't you like cats, people? Or in my country, black cat means luck. So it's just exactly the opposite of what you tried to say here. So we understood that there are some cultural differences between, not too much though, because the game has been purchased everywhere, and we have people from Asia playing it, or Australia, or USA, South America, Europe, etc. And people are it seems that people are happy no matter where they live. So meaning basically the most important part is here. But there are things, especially when it comes to gender or races or things like that might be different from one culture to another. And this is something that creators should bear in mind, because sometimes you think, okay, this is a cool idea, but then you don't realize that maybe it's going to offend someone somewhere else on the planet. So you have to always be careful about what you say or what you show. And at the same time, you have to bear in mind that cultural differences is what makes things interesting. Because if everybody was the same, it would be kind of boring. So as far as being French, I think we brought to the game a lot of Frenchitude, I would say. And people like the humor, and sometimes it's sarcastic, and sometimes it's about things that are under the belt, as they say. So we can afford this because we are French, and we are famous for our not so politically correct mind. But you have to bear in mind that people sometimes just do not share the same symbols when it comes to things that are obvious for you. It might be just the other meaning for this person, or that might be shocking. And
I think
you just
that's
have to be careful about.
Important to keep in mind. Well, Bruno, where can people go and check out your campaign, or also check out the other stuff that you're doing online? Where can they check that out?
Well, the campaign is live on Kickstarter for, I guess, 6 more days, until next Thursday, 19th of October. So you can go to the Kickstarter page, you go to Kickstarter and you type the 7th continent, and you'll find the game. And we also have a corporate website, seriouspoop.com, where you can have a link to the campaign and see what it's all about and other games that we've done before.
Okay, seriouspoulp.com.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. That was a wealth of information, particularly on the fulfillment front. I mean, you guys, particularly, I think you learned a ton with these campaigns, and you've also had to solve many different problems. You also have a really freaking cool product.
Thanks. Thanks a lot.
It clearly shows, too, just having so many backers that have loved your project, that are willing to buy into your project and support it. I think that is a great testament to your work, and I look forward to seeing if you guys are going to do any more projects, all that kind of stuff. So thank you for coming on the show, sharing what you've learned, and just sort of helping, I think, some other board game creators who are looking to also launch their campaign.
Thanks a lot, and I was very happy to be there today, and I hope that it will help other creators, to keep things in mind when they work on their Kickstarter. It's just a tremendous amount of work before it launches, because once it launches, if you have done the things properly, it should work just better. If you're not prepared, you will see the consequences soon. But most of the work is done before it even starts. So good luck for that.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. This episode was, I think, really intense when it came to fulfillment. I think a lot of great information was shared, and fulfillment isn't really something that many creators think about. It's something that's not really on their radar. It's not really at the forefront of your mind when you're raising money, or if you successfully surpassed your fundraising goal. You're not thinking, oh, now I have to ship out these products to all of these people. It's just not on your radar. So it's something you should be thinking about. It's something that at least should be in your mind, and you should be aware of in terms of shipping and costs and all this kind of stuff. And I think, if anything, the number one takeaway is to fall back on the concept of transparency, of being transparent with your backers, of being honest and just sharing regular updates with them, so they don't begin to wonder and they're not left in the dark. I think that's the number one takeaway I had from this episode. If you want more updates in terms of new content that I have coming out with the podcast, with the blog, with my YouTube channel, with new webinars that I do and put on for you guys, you can check that out at crowdcrux.com/subscribe. That is crowdcrux.com/subscribe. And you'll be added to my newsletter there, which is I usually put out weekly. And lastly, if you do want more of a step-by-step tutorial, if you want to gain access to my free videos on how to get backers, how to market your campaign, how to get the word out, that kind of stuff, you can check out crowdcrux.com/crowdfunding. That is crowdcrux.com/crowdfunding. Thanks for spending some time with me here today, and I'll see you next time. Next time.